Hello everybody, Kelly Rice here, but I write under my pen name K.M. Rice. And look what I have. This is the limited edition copy, or version rather, of my young adult gothic romance novel or dark fantasy novel, Darkling. I don't like saying dark fantasy and then Darkling because it's redundant, kind of. It's one of those things that sets off one of my little word ticks because it's repeated. But anyway, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. This is my proof copy and I am so beyond happy with how it turned out. I didn't expect it to print this beautifully, but this cover, hold it up so you can see the cover. This artwork was done, hi, I'm behind the book. It was done by my incredibly talented friend Lindsay Crummett. Now Lindsay and I first talked about her doing an art piece like this in 2015 in New Zealand when I was working in the same department as her at Weta Workshop. If you don't know what Weta Workshop is, they're the people who brought you Avatar, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, most recently Ghost in the Shell. And Lindsay also worked on The Hobbit and Avatar. She's an incredibly talented artist. And she donated this illustration of the main character, Willow, for me to use as the limited edition cover for my crowdfund edition of Darkling. And what makes this book special, so you can see if any of you own Darkling, this is a little bit thicker. That's because there are 18 pages of new material in the back. It is a short story called Willow's Dream. The really clever among you just paused it and read the first 2 lines, didn't you? Not there. You're not supposed to do that because you're supposed to help support my endeavor to turn Darkling into an audiobook by purchasing this limited edition copy or pre-purchasing an audiobook download or purchasing an art print of Lindsay's beautiful illustration or one of the many other rewards that I have listed on my crowdfund. So I'm putting the link in the description of this video, and please have a cup of tea. I've got mine here, or coffee or whiskey, whatever you're into, and have a look at the rewards and see if there's anything that catches your fancy. Because we are going well towards reaching our goal, but we need all the support that we can get, and especially as an independent author, I rely on you, my amazing, awesome readers and vlog watchers, to help support creative endeavors such as this. And like I said, I'm super happy with the way this book has turned out, and I think you guys will be happy too. It even has a new author photo on the back, taken by my friend Cassandra Thompson of Cassandra Thompson Photography. Now, enough about my crowdfund, which if you guys follow me on social media, you're probably already getting sick of hearing about, even though it's only been officially launched for 2 days. Today's question. Eliza Frank asked, did you read much as a child? And if so, did those books influence the stories that you write today? I think hopefully the answer to the first part is obvious, because I read a lot. I was one of those kids who was fortunate enough to be read to by my parents. Both my dad and my mom, when my older brother and I were little, every night had us pick. I think we were limited to 3 books, but we would always try to sneak in more. And we would sit on the couch together, and one of my parents would read the books. Our favorite was when our dad read to us the story of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, because in the copy we had, Goldilocks would often say fiddle-dee-dee. But that wasn't how he read it. He read it like this. Fiddle-dee-dee! Did I scare you? He would wait till it was all quiet. We'd be unsuspecting, and then he'd spring a fiddle-dee-dee. We liked it because we're demented, and you wonder why I write scary stories. But, so I was exposed to literature and to the power of stories from a very young age. My mom also, in a roundabout way, kind of raised me on the stories of Camelot, because one of my very first impressions of an epic tale were, well, there was this old made-for-TV movie. I'm sorry, I don't remember the actress's name, but she played Rudy on The Cosby Show, and she went back in time to King Arthur's Camelot. And I used to love this made-for-TV movie that we recorded on a VHS tape, and so I remember my mom explaining the story of Camelot to me, and I don't know, I was just very enamored with the legends of King Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot, that scoundrel. When I was a child, it just struck me as such a powerful story, these two people who didn't want to hurt the third person, who would be King Arthur. I'm hesitant to talk about the Arthurian legends in case you haven't been exposed, but my god, you must have been exposed. One statistic is that they're second only to the Bible in European countries in terms of how well known they are. There's a new movie coming out, supposedly based on Excalibur, though from the previews it doesn't look anything like The Legend of Excalibur. Excuse me, now I'm going into a nerd rage, because, as you probably also guessed, as I got older, I extended my studies of the Arthurian legends to the point that I wrote my final humanities paper as a senior, graduating with my Bachelor of Arts on the historical, my hypothesized historical version of who King Arthur was, and all of my evidence to support that. I believed that he was probably a man of Roman descent who was also of Sarmatian descent, who were the legions that were sent to Britannia right before the fall of Rome, and they were there for several generations, so they mixed with the Brittonic population, and so he was probably also part Breton, and that made him the perfect figure to be able to link these three different cultures together and to lead them in their defense against the invading Nordic tribes, particularly in the Battle of Baden Hill. And I wish I had glasses so I could adjust them. You know, when I was in high school, I wanted glasses so bad. Because I was like, I'm such a hardcore nerd, and no one knows, and if I had glasses, everyone would know. I don't know, I didn't wish for poor eyesight, I just wanted glasses. I thought it would make me look smart and look different, and that I wouldn't have to explain who I was. Everyone would just see the glasses and know, which is absolutely ridiculous and a total stereotype. There are plenty of people with glasses who aren't nerds, and there are plenty of nerds without glasses. But, you know, that was my little, like, 15-year-old, 14-year-old, whatever, brain trying to express myself. So sorry for that Arthurian tangent, but there you have it. Goes to show how, like I said, how much these stories and legends that you're exposed to as a child stick with you, and I wonder if that's why I often have love triangles, if it's because of Lancelot, Guinevere, and King Arthur. In fact, the very first book that I started to write was called Lancelot, and it was a retelling of Lancelot using a lot of this historical information, and I would wake up and write every day from 9 to 3 because my siblings were in elementary school or high school, or I don't even know when. This was a long time ago, so it probably was like junior high and elementary school. And after 3 they'd be home and the house was noisy. I had no laptop, I had nothing of my own, so I was just using our family computer, so I had to, you know, take advantage of it while I could. And of course this was obviously either on my days off from college or during my breaks, so I wasn't in class myself. But it got, I don't know why I stopped it. I think I had to go back to school, and I think I realized I was taking on a lot for a first project, and it was something so dear to me that I couldn't dare do a disservice to Lancelot. So it's been shelved for the moment. I'm sure I'll revive it at some point. I even wrote a song, and like, I went all out. Anyway, back to books that I always read. So I bring up the Arthurian legends because we talk about reading to children and the importance of reading to children, which is imperative. But I also think that you shouldn't discount oral stories that are told, and myths and legends, and even family stories. Passing down the stories of your own familial history to the younger generation is really important, and that sticks with kids as well. And I know that a lot of that formed the storytelling muscles that I now have. In terms of actual physical books, you know, like this, I did have several. Now I'm also having the thought that with oral storytelling I should probably include films. I know that makes a lot of people cringe, but like I said in my Tolkien vlog a while back, I was first exposed to Middle-earth through the films, not through the books. But that led me to the books. And in a similar way, my dad, at his library where he worked, was able to rent copies of the BBC production of The Chronicles of Narnia. And we loved it when he would bring home The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And we would watch that with Lucy. I'm not going to say anymore. If you've seen the BBC production, you know what I'm talking about. And when I was about 9 or 10, then I wanted to read the book. And I remember being in my 4th grade classroom and reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And being so bored. It was such a boring book to me. I went on and read the beginning of Prince Caspian, but it also felt very boring. And I don't know why that was. I don't know if it's because I already knew the story so well, or if it was written for a readership level that I was already above. But that story still, through the imagery and through seeing it so many times in the film, is very cemented into my imagination. And I think you could argue that Lord of the Rings is in the same fashion, except that I'm an adult now. One of the few books that I remember hearing and reading on my own, no, it was through school, but still, that had a massive impact on me. I say on my own because it wasn't brought to me by my parents, it wasn't part of our ceremony of reading every night, was The Secret Garden. I loved that book, and I loved the slight, go figure, creepiness of this girl alone in this large house trying to solve a mystery, the fact that she found this magical place where she could go and hide, and that she had this special little friend. All of it was just blew my mind, and I remember my 3rd grade teacher warning us that we were going to read this book, and it might be a little bit difficult for some of us, but she thought that we would be able to handle it, and I love challenges, and even as a child, and so it was very exciting to me to take on this book and to be like, I can handle this, I can totally read it. Do I think that The Secret Garden influenced my writing style or the stories I tell today? I really don't know. I mean, I was just hint hint drawing a correlation between certain plot elements and Darkling, but it's not something. I think that the more that we read, the more we're exposed to, obviously, and the more flowers we start growing in the verdant fields of our subconscious imagination. Whether we then go through and pick these flowers to make a bouquet when we're creating our own projects is something that is often, for me, easier for an outsider to see than it is for myself. I don't know why I've got this horrible problem with self-reflection. It isn't until I'm confronted with an issue and forced to decide what my opinion is on it that I can even form an opinion, and even then it's often nebulous. When I was in junior high, I had this moment where I realized I was different than everyone else because I was, I want to say, accepting to a fault. And by that I mean if I saw someone with orange hair, I'm like, cool, a person's got orange hair. Other people would be like, they've got orange hair! It's funny, or it's weird, or it's whatever. But I would just often have no opinion on it. It's kind of like the transcendentalist idea of being the I, the massive I, for those of you who know what the transcendentalism movement was in America with Thoreau and Whitman and all those great American authors and poets. You want to be this translucent I that has direct access to the sublime, yet is a part of the world, yet doesn't change the world? I don't know. I guess it's a weird way of saying that I have always been a bit of an observer, and that's hopefully to my benefit as a writer, because if you're observing without interfering, then you're getting a more realistic idea of the world around you and the role that your subject that you're observing plays in it. So I have no idea how I started talking about this, other than that I'm really bad at self-reflection. I think because of this odd personality trait I have, where my mind often feels like a nebulous place. Not my mind, my opinions feel like a nebulous thing that they're always open to molding and changing. And I think that philosophy has a role in that too, because I got addicted to that incredible feeling of studying a certain philosophy and not getting it, and then having that moment where you get it, and you literally feel the wires in your brain reconnect in a different way, and you get like this intellectual high because all of a sudden Plato's forms make sense to you, and you're seeing the world in a completely different way. And I love being able to see the world in a different way, and I think that's part of the great joy of reading, is seeing the world in a different way. And the great joy of writing is being able to help other people see the world in a different way, because like I said, the more we know and the more exposure we have, the better off we all are. I'm trying to think of any other books that I read as a child that I can directly point to and say influenced me. Of course there was Charlotte's Web. We all read Charlotte's Web, and I remember finding it very sad, but I don't know, I don't think that... It's hard for me to point to any of these. Maybe you guys will see connections to older pieces of literature through my work. But most of the influences that I'm consciously aware of came as an older person. They came from Edgar Allan Poe, they came from Philip Pullman, they came from Louisa May Alcott. And I'm aware of those connections. John Keats. The man. But when it comes to childhood stories, other than, like I said, the experience of emotion, the experience of the emotion and the joy and the escapism that you have when you are young and reading, and even when you're an adult and reading, but when you have that when you're young, it teaches you that this is a value, and that this is something that you should value, and that you should make an effort to make a part of your life. I think that that is probably the most important thing that I learned as a child from reading and from being read to. So in that sense, 100% has shaped who I am, because I am now doing my best to write entertaining stories that connect with readers and take people out of themselves for a short period of time and put them into the mind and body of someone else who's experiencing the world differently, or maybe experiencing a completely different world. And that's, I think, an incredibly healthy, necessary form of escapism, because you're only escaping your current reality. You're not actually leaving anything, and you return to whatever your current reality is, armed with lessons and with a new appreciation and with new ways of looking at things. At least, I hope that that might happen to you if you read my stories, because I think that is what the best stories do. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eliza Frank, for that very thoughtful question. You've really made me have to pause and probably bore you guys as I try to consider my answer. But keep the questions coming. They're awesome. You guys are awesome. I'm so happy to hear that you find this video blog helpful. And please, if you want to help me, do go to the link in the video description and check out my crowdfund to raise the money to turn Darkling into an audiobook, because it's going to be amazing. I also have my pitch video up here on this channel. You can have a look at that. And that is all for right now. Until next time, me and Willow, yeah, that's how hard I'm pushing this. Me and Willow wish you a very fond farewell, don't we? Sure. I don't know who they are, but... What? I don't know who they are. Unless they comment. But then I know who they are, kind of. But they could have fake names, I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's no weirder than me talking to a book and pretending that I'm an inanimate object speaking back to me. Yeah, you're right. Don't listen to anything she says. She's clearly crazy. At least I don't have a high-pitched voice.